So we had a little bit, I wouldn't call it breaking news, but I guess the Orioles giving us a little sneak peek into the coaching staff for 2025 earlier today. The Baltimore Orioles announced their 2025 staff, as I'm going to pull on the screen right here. So here we go. Here is the 2025 staff for the most part. Pretty similar. Obviously, we know the coaching or the hitting coaches moved on, Kevin. So they brought in some new hitting coaches. The two big names, though, that everyone's talking about, Buck Britton and Robinson Chirinos, bringing back Roby from the 2022 squad. Feels good to get those vibes back. So, Kevin, original just kind of reaction. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's where my eyes went. The two coaches, Buck Britton and Chirinos there. I think to me, what a lot of people were talking about if Brandon Hyde was going to be the guy or not next season, it was, oh, well, Buck Britton seems like a pretty good transitional guy to bring up from AAA and have him just kind of slide right in there. And so his title of Major League Coach, I mean, obviously we know this is a big year for Brandon Hyde. And just kind of getting him acclimated up there. And look, I think everybody knows he's deserving of a spot on this staff. I think everybody wanted Buck on the staff this season in one way or the other. And then for bench coach, I think a lot of, there were a lot of names floated around for this. I know David Ross was a popular one, and that was a guy that everybody would have loved that. But you're right. I mean, the vibes in the second half of the season just felt off with this team. It just didn't feel like the fun, happy Orioles that we had gotten used to. And bringing back Chirinos to kind of get that energy up, I think it's a great addition. And yeah, you're right. We know the hitting coaches moved on, and they shook up that part of their staff. And I think everybody knew at least something was necessary there too.
Yeah, and you knew something was going to happen. So they bring in Cody Ash, he was promoted to the hitting coach. And a lot of these guys have been here. Even if they're newer or new to the professional, the MLB coaching staff, they usually have been somewhere in the system. Like Buck Britton, this is his, I believe he had 6 years in the minors, pretty much managing most of these guys, the Gunnar Hendersons, the Cowsers, all these young stars. Buck Britton not only was the AAA manager but for a lot of guys, he was the AA and AAA manager. So he's got an incredible relationship with these guys. And I think the biggest thing is so many of them talk about how great he was for their development and how much they enjoyed their time with him and kind of learning from him. I think he's got a great connection. He's an incredible communicator, they've said. So I think this is the best move so far for the coaching staff. Like you said, always the rumblings that, hey, Buck Britton's going to be the next guy if Hyde gets fired. I've been on that bandwagon. I thought this was a good little next step. You know, we've seen him in the minors. We've seen him prove himself at each level. Now let's get more experience coaching at the major league level and, slowly bring him along.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, where you're right. It's a good step because I know there was some level of, for some people, like, okay, well, just being a minor league guy, being in AAA, making a jump straight from there to a major league job, a major league manager job, is that too big of a jump? And I don't think it would have been. I think Buck is ready for that moment. But now that he has, whether it's a year or whatever, to kind of be in that role, I think a lot of people, not only in the Orioles organization and people around the team, but in major league circles, view Buck as one of these guys that can have a successful coaching career at the major league level. And so this is the natural progression of things. And again, we had kind of talked about it, Zach, how there were arguments for Brandon Hyde to be let go and for them to make a change there. But in reality, it was probably going to be they wanted to give him one more season to kind of see what it was going to look like. Whether you're on that train of thought or whether you're not, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, that was just the reality of the situation. But now it's like make or break. Like if you have another disappointing wild card exit or you get swept in the ALDS again or whatever it may be, I mean, at that point, you definitely have to do something. So you put the best possible staff around Brandon Hyde that you can hope for. And I think that the Buck Britton and Chirinos, adding them to the staff excites me more than anything right now.
Yeah, and, obviously with Buck, you talk about, let's even go extreme what ifs. If the start of the season is just a dud and the Orioles decide, hey, we want to make a move mid-season, feels like he would be the natural guy to get an interim tag. So even having something like that as the next stepping stone, obviously if the Orioles produce this year, it's Brandon Hyde's job. I don't think people call it make or break. And you kind of, when you call it a make or break season, you're like, okay, he's probably fired after this year if they don't do something. If the Orioles run the table and win the World Series, I hate to break it to everyone who wants Hyde gone. He's going to get like a 7-year extension.
Yeah.
Like that's just he has proven that he can lead this team to great things. The Robinson Chirinos one, everyone talked about Adley's second half. What was happening, especially defensively with Adley. What's going on. I think Chirinos is a guy that Adley looked up to. Remember, Chirinos was the guy, the backup catcher when Adley came up. His rookie year, I almost said freshman year, his rookie year. I've been watching way too much college basketball, way
Man.
too much college hoops, too much college football going on in my mind right now. But his rookie year, Chirinos was his mentor, his guy that he kind of took not a backseat to, but watched each day, learned from. I think I love this hire almost even more than the promotion of Buck. And I love that. Just from a comfortability standpoint, I think Chirinos is the perfect guy for this.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of conversation about, again, what happened with Adley. I mean, defensively all year it was pretty poor, and obviously the bat fell off tremendously in the second half of the season. But this is a guy that's familiar with the organization and Chirinos, and who you mentioned has been in Adley's corner and has familiarity with him already. This isn't like you're bringing in a recently retired guy that has never had any interaction with Adley before. I think this essentially is a fast track to getting Adley back on track in multiple different ways. Because if they had hired a recently retired catcher and, you had a track record in this, it would have been fine. But I think you bring in somebody who is familiar with the organization, who clearly has bought into what the organization is doing, and someone who, as you mentioned, Zach, Adley clearly respects and looks up to.
Yeah.
I think that to me is a great thing, because a lot of people on this team had ups and downs last season. I mean, Gunnar had him, Adley had him, everybody had him. But Adley's were the most concerning because he never really broke out of it in the second half. We saw Gunnar break out of it in moments. We saw other guys break out of it. But Adley, it was just a consistent decline. And for a guy who's supposed to be one of the cornerstones of your franchise, that can't happen. And you can't have it happen in back-to-back years. So get ahead of it now and make sure you're bringing a guy that you feel the most confident in can help him moving forward.
Yeah, and for those wondering, Chirinos was a guy that actually came back to the Orioles this past offseason during spring training. They brought him in to coach, to kind of give pointers down there. He helped with the development of not just Adley, but other guys down in spring training for a week. So this is a guy that has the Orioles respect him a lot. The players respect him a lot. And I think the Orioles really like what they think Chirinos can do from a developmental side. So overall, I think it was a good coaching staff. I think people are overall happy with it. But this is Kevin and Zach React. Hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoy the content. We react to all Ravens and Orioles news as it goes live after every single game, win or lose for Ravens and Orioles. And so we will be back at it again after the Ravens play in about, 6 hours. So we'll see you guys tonight. Hit that like and subscribe button.